sometimes things happen, and we've got to report live on the air. So first, before I tell you who LSU's 3 permanent opponents are going to be moving forward in Southeastern Conference play, allow me to take a little bit of time to tell you about Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. Government right there between Foster and Jefferson. Awesome fried fish, awesome fried shrimp, etouffee, shrimp and grits, quick service drive-through, and the ability to eat in their newly renovated dining room. Cork's is an awesome new startup restaurant here from the guys who brought you Kuyon's Barbecue. I want you to stop on by there this weekend. Make some plans to head on by. Go to corksfishandshrimp.com. Check out their menu. All right, we've got permanent opponents. I talked about it in the first segment, and Scott Rabelais for The Advocate is reporting that according to sources involved, of course an ad pops up on my phone when I'm reading it, according to sources involved in the scheduling process, the Tigers will retain current SEC West foes Alabama, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M as permanent opponents moving forward. Now, let me take a second to marinate on that, because my first gut reaction to this is that when I look at a 20-year run, whether that's the next 20 years, the 20 years after that, or the previous 20 years, I think the teams in the Southeastern Conference West Division, as it currently sits, with the most resources to create a football program, are Alabama and Texas A&M. I think they trump Auburn. I think they trump Arkansas. So that is not a great draw, in my opinion. Now, realizing that you're doing away with divisions, and now you've got everybody lumped in, and that includes Texas and Oklahoma and Georgia and Florida and Auburn and Tennessee as legitimate potential powers. The bottom could fall out. It fell out of Tennessee. It's fallen out of Texas. It can do that. And I'm trying not to lock myself in on who's the coach right this second, who's the quarterback right this second, what did they do last year? That's not really important to me. What's important is 10, 15, 20 years. When LSU got married to Florida in 1992, that lasted 30 years. And they had 2 coaches there that put outrageously good products on the field. Every once in a while, Dak Prescott might show at Mississippi State, and that's a tougher day at the office than playing Auburn. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about big picture. So when I dump everything into the pot and try to look at this from a whole perspective, I would prefer not to play Alabama. I think their commitment, their tradition, that's probably as tough a draw as you can grab as a permanent opponent. I was hoping that that wouldn't be there. Understanding, I know I would play Alabama every other year anyway. I was hoping that wasn't going to be there. A&M, y'all have heard me talk about this for years now. It's the most underachieving athletic program in the history of collegiate sports, based on the resources they have at their disposal, the recruiting base that is in their backyard, what they've accomplished, which is a whole pile of zero, is the most underachieving in the history of sports. However, that fact does not detract away from the potential that lies in College Station. It's a little bit of an odd place. It's a unique place. And I think some of that has played into why they haven't created any big-time success. But the potential is still there. And I'd rather, if you were going to lock me into Texas A&M or Arkansas, I think the odds are significantly higher that A&M poses a larger threat than Arkansas over a 20-year time frame. Same goes with Ole Miss or Mississippi State. And I think one of these days, I don't know that it's Jimbo, and right now the odds are that it may not be Jimbo. One of these days, they're going to figure it out. And once they get a real coach in there, maybe they haven't. Jimbo might win the league 3 times in his time there. I don't know. But once the guy gets there, once they find their version of Urban Meyer or Nick Saban, and I know this is the greatest ever, but you understand it. Phil Fulmer at Tennessee, and then he left and it fell out. Once they find their version of that guy, Georgia finally found Kirby. He's got it cooking. LSU found Saban. He got it cooking. Its potential is so high. So my thoughts as I go through, this just showed up, and for those that are just jumping in the car and seeing what I'm talking about, Scott Rabelais of The Advocate is reporting that sources close to the SEC are determining that LSU's 3 permanent opponents in scheduling are very likely to be Alabama, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss. But Ole Miss's potential is not that. Now, they've got Lane Kiffin right now. Then they're formidable because he does a good job of finding the pieces in the portal. He's a great play caller, and they're pretty tough. But over a 20-year run, I don't think they are. I think they're well in the bottom half of the SEC, well into it. Vanderbilt's significantly worse. I think Missouri's significantly worse. I think Mississippi State is worse. I think Arkansas is a little bit worse. South Carolina's close. But after that, everybody else has got a leg up on them. Texas, Oklahoma, LSU, Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee. But at least it's not what they're talking about with Bama. If Bama does get Auburn, Tennessee, and LSU, Ole Miss is a significant drop down from those, in my opinion. And yes, I'm aware of Tennessee's last 15 years. Plenty aware. Doesn't change the fact they got a ton of money, great facilities, and some tradition. And once they finally may have the coach, it changes things. So again, that's the point I'm trying to make. Even when Tennessee had Jeremy Pruitt as their head coach, who had no business having that job, Vince Dooley, who had no business having that job, that doesn't change your potential. And again, just because Ole Miss right this second has a guy who's a pretty good coach doesn't change what they are. I think this is okay. I would prefer a rethrow of the dice because I was hopeful that in the web that I had drawn that generally the pods had 2 haves and 2 have-nots, which we're not going to do pods now. Just going to do permanent opponents and mix and match them. This is not great for LSU, but I'm not totally outraged. I'd be totally outraged if you gave me Alabama, Florida, and Texas A&M. I'd be totally outraged if you gave me Alabama, Auburn, and Texas A&M. I'm not totally outraged. I need to see the rest of this thing. But if you tell me that LSU drew Alabama, Ole Miss, and A&M, and Alabama drew Tennessee, Auburn, and LSU, well, we clearly got the leg up there. The thing is, we don't directly compete with Alabama in a division anymore, which was the case for 15 years of Saban, where it was that game, if you lose it, you're toast. Edward O. Nuss Bus Driver says, honey, you scared of Bayou Billy over in Gainesville? I'm not scared of Bayou Billy one iota. I'm scared of the blue and orange gator over there because I know what that can be, and it's frightening when it gets cooking. Did you see it in the 90s? Did you see the Tebow teams with Demps and Rainey and Harvin and Hernandez and Cooper? And that's frightening. And that doesn't exist ever in Oxford. So I'll live with getting them every year. And keep in mind, you're playing Georgia every other year. You're playing Tennessee every other year. You're playing Oklahoma every other year. Like, it's not like you're dodging or ducking anybody. But when you're locking in a permanence, that's something that is going to be significant. Hey, thanks so much for watching the Hunt Palmer Show on YouTube. If you don't mind, throw us a like right below and hit the subscribe button. We'll see you next time.